Welcome to Unlearn the Crap TV with your host, Kathy Baldwin. Unlearn the Crap TV is more than just a show. It's a movement towards breaking free from the disempowering structures designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many. It's about education, healing, and unlearning the detrimental beliefs that have been ingrained in society for generations. So now, please welcome the host of Unlearn the Crap TV, Kathy Baldwin.
Welcome to Unlearn the Crap and Level Up. Your Soul is Calling. My name is Kathy Baldwin. I'm your host. And today is a very special day because today is my first episode of a brand new segment that I'm bringing to the podcast called Kathy Unfiltered. What I'm going to do in these segments is just be me, talk to you about thoughts, feelings, experiences, stories, books, learnings, whatever comes across. And so today is really special to me because today is the anniversary of the day I lost my father. I lost my father 17 years ago today. It was too early, and I miss him very much every single day. So today I wanted to share with you some of the learnings that this man gave me for my life. My father was a hard ass. He wanted to be in control of everything. My father had a nickname called the Captain. And he got that nickname back in the 80s when CB radios were mainstream in personal vehicles, not just in truckers' vehicles. And so you had to have these nicknames or these handles. And so he came up with the Captain. My mother was the crew, and I was the sleeper. Because as a young teenage girl, I liked to sleep a lot, and I was pretty good at it. So my nickname or my handle was very aptly named. So was it for my father. My father had this sign that he had in the house, and it was engraved into a brass plaque, and it said, "To the crew, please be reasonable and do things my way. Signed, the Captain." And while that was a joke, there was definitely a semblance to his thought process and how he ran the household. And so me as a young teenager, I hit that wall against him for so long. And we would clash. And in the last 7 weeks of his life, I was his sole caretaker. My mother had passed away and my father was very ill. And I had a situation where on the day my mother suddenly passed away, I flew to where he had retired in Mexico and came to be with him. And when I arrived, I saw just how sick he was. Those are things you couldn't see on the phone when we would talk. And so the reality became very clear. And I was put up against the situation of who am I to this man and how do I proceed? Because as the captain, I was, as the dutiful daughter, was supposed to do as I was told, and his rule, his home, his rules, that kind of environment. So here I was now there helping him to grieve while I was grieving, helping to care for him while he was very, very ill. And I didn't know what to do because the rules had changed. I was now the caretaker. And I didn't know how to navigate these changing rules. And so I remember I went to bed that night and I looked at a picture of my mother. Now remember, she had just passed away within 24 hours. And I was there immediately. And I looked at this picture of my mother and I said, "Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle this. What am I supposed to do?" And in the morning, early in the morning, I heard my mother's voice in my ear. And it was this ear, my right ear, and I could actually feel the breath of her voice. My mother said, Kathy, you know damn well what to do. Just do it. Well, that's how she spoke. So it was really clear to me that this was a visitation. And it was a pretty monumentous moment for me, because that day I went to my father and I said, this is what's happened. I don't know how to handle this. Here I am, a grown woman in my mid 40s. But how do I navigate this? My father said something that day that forever changed our relationship and healed all those 44 years of clashing that we had. And it changed who I was. My father said to me, Kathy, you do what you think is right. And if you step on my toes, I'll say ouch and we'll deal with it together. Ah, the freedom that I got from that moment of it was okay to do what I thought was right. It was okay to make mistakes and stumble, and that together him and I would deal with that. It was so beautiful and really has changed how I deal with conflict, how I deal with things that come up, because it's okay to step on someone's toes as long as the person can say, ouch, and we'll deal with it together. Some of the other stories that I wanted to share with you about my father. I was just recently speaking to someone today and talking about the musings of the things that I learned from him. And one of them was when he had retired to Mexico, he had lived in a place called Lake Chapala that was right outside of Guadalajara. And at the time, the lake levels were falling and the lake was becoming overgrown with this particular weed, and it was strangling out the ecosystem. And it was really affecting not only the ecosystem and the nature, but it was affecting the livelihood of those people who live there, the people who fish, the people who needed it for drinking water and irrigation and all sorts of other aspects. And it was because somebody had dammed it up to divert that water flow to a nearby city. And so I remember saying to him, how do you undo this kind of damage? And here's another life lesson that I got from my father. He said, you stop putting the damage in. You stop doing what's not working, and Mother Nature will take care of itself. How many times have we gone down a path where things aren't working the way we are, thinking they're supposed to work? And our results are getting putrefied and strangled and stagnant. And yet we keep soldiering on, doing what we've been doing, thinking we're going to create different results. We can't. We have to stop what we're doing that's causing the disease and give room for a healing to happen. I love that story. I absolutely love that story. Another story that I have of my father was about community that he experienced when he lived in Mexico. You see, in the area he lived, it was in the mountains. And during the rainy season, there was a lot of rain. And so the roads had these great, big, deep gullies that allowed that volume of water to come down and not wash out the roads and give the water a place to go. And so one day he was making a turn onto the road and his back tire slipped and it fell into this deep gully, this ditch. And he was driving a really big Lincoln Town car. I mean, he loved his great big Fords. wasn't the best vehicle for the city that he was living in, with cobblestone roads and fitting with these narrow roads, because I mean, these are old towns, right? But that was his car, that was his dream. So he was still driving that car around. And so when he slipped into the gully and half of his car was down there, he was, of course, trying to figure out, oh my God, what do I do? How do I handle this? The traffic all around him came to a complete standstill. And what happened was, all of these people came running out of their vehicles, and all these men, they grabbed a portion of the car and they picked it up and they put the car back on the road. And then they just left and got back into their cars and drove on about their business. You know, could you imagine if we lived in a world where we had such a community, where instead of thinking that we are not our brother's keeper, that what happens to someone else is, I don't want to get involved, I don't want to be, that's not my business, but instead we came to the aid without any thought of repayment, because these gentlemen would not take any money from my father. This was just what you did. When you saw someone in need, you just helped. You just gave selflessly. Could you imagine if we lived in a world where community like that was an everyday occurrence? That's the world that I think about, and that's the world that I dream about when I talk about unlearning the crap and leveling up, where we no longer are living in an isolated, selfish world, where what happens around us, we understand, impacts us just as much as it impacts others, because we are all one. We are all interconnected, interrelated beings. Everything we do and say matters. Even closing a blind eye to seeing somebody in need, knowing we can help, and choosing not to, or choosing to help. Whatever choice we make affects us. It affects our energy. It affects our well-being. So when I honor my father and the passing of him 17 years ago today, I don't remember the challenges, and I don't remember the conflicts. I remember the lessons. That's what I've chosen to take away. That's part of what I did in my healing journey, was I chose what part I was going to carry with me. And what I carry forward from that man was his insatiable curiosity, his desire to know so much about so many things. Anytime he became interested in something, he had to know all about it. And he would become an expert in every topic, whether it was photography or barbecuing or making wine at home or building things around the house. I mean, it didn't matter what it was, the stock market. He was self-educated because he was so curious about everything he needed to know. That's part of who I am. I take those challenges that him and I had and the beautiful lessons that I learned from it. I've accepted that some of those challenges created crap in my own belief system that had nothing to do with me, and I've released it. I've released it so that I can level up. When I think about his sense of humor and how he would laugh, and I remember all of the joyful moments of really small things, like laying on the floor, watching TV, because our TV was floor level on a console at those times. And we would lay on our sides with our heads in our hand and watch TV together as a family, or taking vacations or Christmases. I remember the deep love that that man had for me and how much he loved me, even in his flawed ways, even when he didn't do it perfectly, even when he did it in ways that created crap in my life and in my brain and in my thoughts. I know he was doing the very best that he could, and he gave the very best of what he had. And that's what I'm going to honor. And that's what I'm going to carry forward as I remember him 17 years later. I hope you enjoy these musings. I'm planning on doing them very sporadically as I have a thought or something I feel of value that I want to share. I'm also going to create another episode segment called Beyond the Interview, where we can discuss the thoughts and feelings and experiences that we got from the amazing guests that Unlearn the Crap is bringing to the show. I would love your thoughts and feelings and experiences as to what you hear about in this musings. Share your comments. I really want to know. And so until next time, may you unlearn the crap that is detrimental in your life so that you can level up because your soul is calling. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share. I'll see you on the next one.